You know, I always thought that as a child growing up, I thought that I would be addressing this many people at the Academy Awards. And that's still to come, but I have a much greater purpose and task at hand today. What you just previewed is a sneak peek of yet-to-be-released commercials that I produced, wrote, and directed as part of my End Demand Human Trafficking Awareness campaign. The goal with these commercials is to air them on top of and throughout major sporting events and prior to film releases. I would also like to thank Miss Ashley Judd for lending her voice in the versions that you did not see of this commercial as a voiceover, which will certainly help us disseminate these commercials throughout the nation. There are an estimated 27 million people that are enslaved in the world today. The numbers have soared past the transatlantic slave trade. 800,000 to 1 million people are trafficked across the world, with 50 to 70,000 of these individuals entering the United States annually for commercial sex and labor. No county, no city, no suburb is immune to human trafficking in this country. Human trafficking is modern-day slavery. It is not race, class, or gender specific. The traffickers and perpetrators of the services provided by these victims are from every walk of life. Many, if not all of us have helped this insidious $9.5 billion industry grow to become the second highest profitable illegal enterprise, falling second to drug trafficking, which is now even blended with human trafficking. The saddest reality of human trafficking is that 70 to 80% of the victims are children and women forced into commercial sex, which encompasses street prostitution, escort services, online pornography, and work in strip clubs. The majority of the organized sex trafficking rings operate in plain sight as fronts for legal businesses and homes in residential neighborhoods. This was the case here in Kansas City last year, where officers raided a massage parlor and were surprised to find Asian women being held against their will and forced to prostitute. This was, of course, a big shock to the people here, which was evident to me when I arrived to do a screening of my films after being invited by a district attorney who told me here that the people, quote, are living in the illusion that everything is peach pie, end quote. This is how traffickers are able to set up shop so conspicuously in towns across America. They're confident in the fact that Americans are not paying attention to anything else but themselves. Traffickers are very intelligent, conniving individuals who operate as groups, gangs, and families and will do whatever it takes to make a profit. They hope and believe that we as Americans think that it's not happening in our towns and in our counties, and that is what they use to quietly and quickly set up shop. This takes me to a case where vice officers were flabbergasted in Westminster, California, where they raided a chiropractic office only to find 30 women forced to work as prostitutes. These traffickers were so cunning that they purchased the building next door to the office and created a secret underground passageway that would lead the customers, the Johns, into the connecting business where the actual brothel was. Human trafficking is Shaima, a 13-year-old Egyptian girl forced to sleep on a dog bed as a domestic servant in Orange County for 2 years for an affluent family. Thinking she was coming to America for a new beginning, she quickly found out that her life would be subject to constant beatings, abuse, and threats. Human trafficking is Viviana, a young girl that I featured in my documentary, Cargo Innocence Lost, who at 16 was trafficked into Austin, Texas, and forced to prostitute for 6 months with immigrant construction workers until she managed to break a window and flee for her life. Human trafficking is the 2 Indonesian women recently rescued in a wealthy Long Island neighborhood after one was able to get away from her captors who starved and beat them frequently while they worked as domestic servants. Human trafficking is the Atlanta judge who is now serving time after being convicted this past June for falsifying documents to bring an Indian woman to America, only to enslave her in his home and force her to work in the most egregious of conditions. Human trafficking is the steady stream of American children, 1.6 million to be exact, annually, that are populating the streets, creating a steady pool of victims right here in the United States. They have been targeted by traffickers and trafficked through cities across the country to be sold to other pimps and johns who purchase them from elaborate networks online where traffickers advertise and johns solicit sex from minors. American children that have left violent and abusive homes only to be lured in by individuals who promise a life better than the one they knew. Under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, or the TVPA, which is the federal law passed in 2003, any child under the age of 18 involved in a commercial sex act is a victim of human trafficking, full stop. American children fall victim to this crime for a variety of reasons, but one main ingredient is the ever-growing demand and accessibility to these street and online brothels via the internet. With so many American children being targeted, one would wonder why there is such little funding appropriated to provide services for kids who fall victim to this crime, and why there is such little outreach providing preventative education and resources for children who are preyed upon. The United States has invested $528 million globally and $76.5 million domestically to achieve the goals of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. But there is very little funding appropriated to provide services to citizen victims of human trafficking. The children in the United States have been left alone, not only by families that have abandoned them, but also by a government who has failed to put in place strategies and funding to aid in the eradication of domestic trafficking first. A few weeks ago, the FBI conducted a series of raids in 16 cities across the nation over a 5-day period as part of their Innocence Lost initiative. Over the past 5 years, they have rescued 433 child victims. When these kids are rescued, they end up either back to a home where violence and abuse was rampant, or in a foster care system that is understaffed, underfunded, and riddled with cases. This is why traffickers are able to exploit so many of the children that run away every year in our country. The children have no place safe to go, and the traffickers are geniuses in creating a guise of support, money, and love at first. When I first found out about human trafficking, I was in Bulgaria starring in a film for the Sci-Fi Channel. I was invited to attend a fundraiser for an organization and quickly found myself traveling to poor villages, speaking with girls and boys who have been trafficked out of the country to satisfy the growing demand for child sex around the world. I was devastated when I heard so many of these children repeatedly tell me the same reasons as to why and how they got involved. From I thought they, the recruiters, loved me. He said he would take care of me, give me work. I wanted to have a better life. I wanted to get away from the abuse at home. I hear the same exact stories time and time again from children in the United States. And now with the internet being able to serve as a gateway for johns and pimps to gather our youth, not just the runaways, are all at risk to be cajoled into this exploitation. It is happening across the country with kids in every tax bracket. The recruiters have a desire for money, and the demand has a desire for sexual exploitation of minors. The profit for this crime is extremely high, and it provides much less risk for criminals compared to drug trafficking. This has piqued the interest for street gangs, low-level and high-level pimps, and individuals looking to score some quick cash. In recent months, a few cases have made it to the media's attention, such as the case in Vermont, where a young 12-year-old girl turned up dead, and her uncle was arrested for allegedly trying to sell her into a sex ring. There have been cases of young girls being wooed or forced by other young girls into prostitution as part of gang initiations, where those children are then sold and trafficked out of state, and now an alarming trend is out of country. While this crime is growing swiftly and efficiently in the dark, very few Americans have a clue what human trafficking is. A couple of weeks ago, I'm going off script here, but a couple of weeks ago I did a conference in the Los Angeles metropolitan area, and I mentioned human trafficking, and one of the guys stood up and said, so yeah, the traffic problem is a big deal in LA. And I said, no, human trafficking. It's the lack of public awareness about this crime causes the tentacles of human trafficking to grow incessantly wherever it lays its head. Drug sales, drug abuse, sexually transmitted diseases, organized crime, and child sex recruitment are just some of the extensions of human trafficking that enter a neighborhood along with it. The eradication of modern-day slavery and exploitation cannot happen with just one person. We need a multilateral offense with nonprofits, law enforcement, first responders, educators, lawmakers, citizens, and the faith-based communities all joining forces. There should be no politics and bureaucracy involved in this fight. There should be no sides and opposition to ending a criminal act such as human trafficking, which preys on the most vulnerable in our society. The majority of the cases that have been brought to law enforcement's attention have come from tips from individuals in the community who had knowledge of identifying signs of human trafficking. And it was those phone calls that helped lead to the capture and prosecution of traffickers and the freedom of human beings. Public awareness about human trafficking is the vital key to fighting this crime. This is why I have made films for the past 5 years to help educate civilians, law enforcement, public safety agencies in an effort to help raise the level of awareness about this here in America. I'm proud to say that since 2003, these films have been used by hundreds of individuals, organizations, colleges, churches, and federal and state agencies as part of town hall meetings, concerts, festivals, trainings, and workshops, and have been the impetus behind human trafficking community block walking groups throughout the country. Even though there has been much traction, I need help with continuing to get this message across the country. And this is why I'm here, asking you, the members of NACO, to see how you can fit public awareness about human trafficking into your agenda and for this year and years to come. It is imperative that we make the public aware of human trafficking in our country. I ask the National Association of County Members to consider taking steps to raise awareness by hosting town hall meetings with state officials, law enforcement and non-government representatives, and nonprofits. I suggest free trainings of my films and other films like them and workshops in your counties to educate members, public safety agencies, and city employees such as postal workers, Department of Water and Power, parking enforcement, city clerk's officers, people that daily spend their time in these neighborhoods and may come across situations that could raise flags about trafficking operations that can undoubtedly so save someone's life. As some of you may have seen in your NACO newsletter this month, I am offering a major discount on my 3-disc box set, which has been used by over 100 organizations. It's called Human Trafficking 101, the Presenter's Kit. It is a multimedia training guide with entertaining, enlightening, and educational films about the issue of human trafficking. The kit normally sells for $269.99. I'm giving NACO members a 35% discount. This kit will now sell to you for $175. I am offering this kit at this exclusive rate because I hope that it will serve as an incentive to the members that will allow you to help spread awareness about this issue and cause for the eradication of modern-day slavery. Lastly, I do have another call to action which you can take on at this immediate moment. Sitting on Senator Joe Biden's judiciary desk is the bill that would reauthorize the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, the TVPA. The bill has passed the House and will easily pass the Senate with bipartisan support as soon as Senator Biden has put his mark on it. For the members that want to take action right now, I would encourage you to call and send an email to his office and ask him to include funding for citizen victims of human trafficking. If you'd like to get any more information about me, my work in human trafficking, please log on to ISTOPTRAFFIC.com. Senator Joseph Biden's phone number, which I'm sure many of you already know and have, is 202-224-5042. I'll give it to you again because I see some notebooks being opened. 202-224-5042. 4:2. If we don't look after our children now, then what does America's future hold for tomorrow? Thank you.